Welcome to This Dad Reads a Podcast. I'm your host, Jason. Today, I am joined by a longtime friend of the podcast. He is one of the originators of the High Republic Publishing Initiative and a fan favorite Star Wars author. It is Cavan Scott. Welcome back to the show, Cavan.
Thanks for having me again. It's great to be back.
Well, yes, of course. So we have a lot to catch up on. I haven't seen you since, I think, San Diego Comic-Con, at least in person, 2025.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot has happened since then for the world, for everyone. So I just want to catch up. Like, what's new with you? What's new with Cavan Scott?
Well, you're right. The world seems to have changed a lot in the last year. But yeah, I'm still writing. I'm still working on various different things. Got a couple of Star Wars projects. One's just come out. Got another one on the horizon. Still working with my friend George Mam on various different things. And preparing to. I mean, obviously, there's a dad aspect to this show as well. I'm coming up to the point where my youngest is about to leave home and go to university, so we're in the process of trying to work out what life looks like after that. After having kids around the house for 20 odd years, we'll suddenly have no kids around the house, and it's going to be odd. It's going to be weird. But yeah, so lots going on with that as well.
I can only imagine as I'm like trying to like tell my kids, so like I need just 1 hour of silence, please, while I do this. They're running
Whereas
amok
I'm
doing
going,
some...
no, spend more time with me. Spend all the time you can with me. And they're
yeah,
like,
right.
no, bye. Oh, right, fair enough.
I do want to
It's
get
fair.
back to that because I have some dad questions about that whole journey. But you mentioned a new Star Wars. We might as well just jump right into it. Terra on Mustafar is an Audible original. It literally just came out. So, I mean, I feel like these Audible releases have been kind of like just out of nowhere for everyone. But I'm sure for you, you've been working on it for a while. But so just tell me about kind of the history, the impetus for the story, and just a little bit
Sure.
more about the whole thing.
Yeah, so this is the second one of those short. I mean, it's about 4 hours long, aren't they? They're sort of aimed at sort of younger readers, middle grade kind of age. But obviously, like all Star Wars middle grade, it's supposed to be written so anyone can listen to it and enjoy it. In this case, they came out. Audible has a funny way of marketing, as in they don't do it. So they literally, because both myself and George Mann have worked for Audible before on various other things, mainly Sherlock Holmes, and there is no promotion period. It's just like, here's a thing and it'll land, boom. And that's, for all these Star Wars releases, that's what they do. There was a slight hiccup in Mustafar that it was leaked beforehand because someone, I think, pressed the wrong button and it suddenly appeared somewhere and then it was taken down again. So it was the worst kept secret that it was happening.
Or was that their marketing strategy?
Yeah, exactly. But it came a few years ago now. Again, I think it was New York Comic Con. Mike Spillane asked me if, because obviously I've been working quite a lot on the audios from Random House, for both High Republic and then before that Dooku. Audio's been my life for 25 years or more, working in various things. So he asked me, they were going to sign up with Audible to do some exclusives. Would I be interested? I think originally the plan were to do them as dramas, but then it became that it would be like a prose version. But for the first one I did, Jaws of Jakku, we played with it a bit and it's told in the first person, so it reads more like a monologue. This latest one, Terra on Mustafar, is a more traditional third-person story. But yeah, so it was a very nice situation when Mike said, do you want to do something High Republic? Do you want to do something, something else? And it's interesting because both Jaws and Terra Mustafar, Jaws Jakku, was for me was going back to things, because some of the first things I ever did in Star Wars were stories of Rey on Jakku. And likewise, obviously I spent many years for the comics writing the Tales from Vader's Castle and dealing with Fanny and all those kind of things. So, when I said, I was in the middle of like pulling the High Republic together for the end of for Phase 3, and I was like, I don't think I can put my heart and soul into writing something else for the High Republic at the minute, because it was all encompassing at that point, and I wanted to write more Star Wars, but I was like, can I write something that's not, in that period? So they said yes, but as long as it's going back to Jakku and as long as it's going back to Mustafar. But I mean, that's no problem,
Yeah.
For Jakku, we've talked about this before. Jakku and Rey, for my kids, my kids now, as I mentioned, both. My eldest has gone to drama school. My youngest is about to go to uni. They both at 20 and 18 have pictures of Rey on their wall still, So
Love it. Yeah.
it's for them, she is Star Wars, that she was their entrance. That and Rebels were their entrance into Star Wars. And so anything I can write with Rey going back to that planet. Obviously, that one's set slightly later in the timeline, so it's set just before Rise of Skywalker. She goes back, literally. It's a return to Jakku. Yeah, that's a little bit of a a love story for them, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to write it from the point of view of a kid who meets Rey and looks up to her as being a hero, because that's what I live with, and yes, say my eldest at drama school, largely because of Rey, largely because of the two things were Daisy Ridley as Rey and Jodie Whittaker as Doctor Who. Those were the two things that made my eldest want to be an actor. And then, yeah, Terror on Mustafar, it's a Halloweeny type story, which we released in May, but it's Halloween every day as far as I'm concerned. Again, a bunch of kids, these are, in this case, Imperial cadets, who hero worship, a different kind of hero worship. Is an Imperial cadet, or a scout, actually. He's not even a cadet yet. Who worships Vader, worships the ground Vader stomps over, and then comes face to face with Vader and realizes that perhaps the hero worship was slightly misjudged. So yeah, it was a case of a return into places, which was quite good fun. But I love writing middle grade. I love writing for kids. There's actually not a lot of difference in writing Star Wars for middle grade and writing for adults, because you have to have adventure, in my views. You have to have, intrigue, you have to have emotion, and that's what you need for middle grade as well. So it's the lens you're looking at Star Wars through, the filter is slightly different when you're writing for kids. But yeah, they're a lot of fun writing those books, because again, you still write them like a book. It's still written in exactly the same way, but you've always got half a mind that someone's going to have to read this. And of course, for Terror, it was Mark Thompson, the great Mark Thompson. So I was always hoping, when I knew that I was writing Vader, that he'd be doing the voice. But he's great. He's so good.
That's actually what I was going to ask. I was going to say, do you know that Mark's on board, like when you sign on, or does that kind of inform the way that you write, knowing who your narrator is going to be, or maybe you don't know who the narrator is going to be?
No, I don't.
Or does it change anything?
Well, I mean, we knew in the High Republic, obviously Mark was going to do all the main sort of adult novels. His voice for Markian Rowe absolutely influenced Markian Rowe by the end, because he became the performance for it. I love I've worked with Mark on things beyond Star Wars as well. I wrote some stories for Weird Tales and asked for Mark to do the audiobooks for them, So he's great. He's phenomenal. But yeah, I had I had a hope that it would be Mark. He doesn't do a lot of those sort of like the Audible original ones, but again, I think when it's Vader, you want someone who can sound like Vader, and boy, can you! I mean, he can sound like anyone.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. Right. And so I was very glad when he was the voice. But yeah, I didn't know until it was advertised the first time incorrectly. I had no idea it was Mark.
Really? So you didn't hear any previews? You didn't get any sort of heads up?
No.
Wow. Okay.
So
Mark
yeah,
didn't
for this
DM
one, I
you.
didn't hear a thing. Okay. Yeah, but it's fine. It means I get to experience it. By the time I've heard it, I've forgotten it. So it's like, that's actually quite nice.
It was like it was brand new.
Yeah, it did, and it really did. I mean, so yeah, I sat down and listened to it when I was driving and doing all, washing up and stuff, and listening to it like everyone else does. And again, it was first of all, if I'd known it was Mark, I probably would have written it a certain way, because I know how Mark says things. But at the same time, you never know how he's going to say something. You never know the little bit of emphasis. You do when you're writing Vader, and what, because he obviously has the pattern and the timbre and everything off pat. But like with any kind of performance, because those books are performances as well. It's not a straight read. I mean, it's definitely a performed by. There's always going to be something that will surprise you. And I used to have this when I used to write Doctor Who, and those voices I literally grew up with, of the doctors from the 80s. there will be moments where I'd write them lines and know exactly how they would say the word TARDIS and exactly how they would say the companion's name or something like that. But then they'd surprise you because they're the Doctor and you've just putting words in their mouth. But they would say something and it just takes on a new life. And so that's why I love doing anything in audio. And as I'm moving more into animation and things like that, it's a very similar discipline. It's those little moments of performance that I say, it's a life that you never expected. There can be something, an emphasis placed on a word that you wouldn't have expected, but from that moment on, you can never not read it in those words. So same with like the High Republic books, the ones that were obviously written as prose novels. There are moments now that I can't read them back without hearing the performer perform them.
Yeah, and that's like a whole other level of collaboration and like artistry, right? That comes into it that you can't plan. That's like
No,
something that happens outside of you, and then the listener is going to even interpret it a different way too. So that I'm sure that makes it even more fun.
yeah, and just to explain, most of the time with audiobooks, you don't have any kind of contact with it. It's something that happens after you're done and you're finished
Mhm.
on a book. Audio drama is different because you're quite often involved in the process and there's like edits and that kind of thing. With my last audio for Star Wars, Tempest, Breaker, I was definitely more involved in it because my daughter's in it. So, so I went into the recording. I mean, I'm in it as well. I play a droid. I'm a butler droid. I have about 3 lines. And
I don't think I knew that.
um, no, so I'm there's a bit when Lorna Dee goes to a ball that Mark Imro's going to be at, there's a droid that comes up and goes, "Drinks, madam," and that's me.
Was
And I
that
get killed
uncredited? Are
later
you
on.
in there? Are you in the credits?
I don't think I'm credited now.
Oh,
No,
okay,
I'm
okay.
just I'm there. My
Now
daughter
everyone's
is. My
gonna have to go
daughter's
listen
credited.
back. Yeah, that's so
Um,
cool.
so she plays a Padawan, and I literally killed my baby in that story. But yeah, but it was great. I mean, for that was a different experience for me because again, when she started to do drama, she used to stage, so I used to see her all the time. Now she does screen stuff, and I don't get to see it very often when she's at drama school because it's all stuff they do in course. So it was brilliant to be able to go into the booth with her and see her perform because again, I don't get to see it so much these days. So yeah, but with audio drama, you do spend more time talking about pronunciations, which can be controversial in Star Wars.
Sure.
And so there is more collaboration there. But yeah, with audiobooks across beyond Star Wars as well, you very rarely have any choice. No, you don't know till it arrives.
Well, that's kind of a good distinction because I feel like these Audible ones have been a little bit confusing because they're only in audio. So I think some people might interpret them as being audio dramas, but they're not. They're audiobooks
No,
that
they're
aren't
audiobooks.
really
Yeah, I mean,
that aren't books. They're just
yeah,
but
I
they're
mean,
original audio. Yeah.
so it's yeah, I mean, it's the books written for audio first. Basically, I think that's the way to put
Yeah.
it. I mean, again, I write them in a way that I know it's going to be spoken. So, and you
Yeah.
do put a little bit of sound effects in there as well. But what you can't do is obviously you have to explain everything. Whereas in audio drama, you let the action and the sound effects and the music do all, there might be, and this is not inside knowledge. I don't know. One day there could be a book of these. I don't know if there will be, but it's written in a way that if it happened, that
That
would
it
be
would
fine.
work. Yeah.
Whereas obviously with the audio dramas, when they are printed, it's printed as a script because there is
Right.
no. Because some people say to me, why don't you just print your original book you wrote for the dramas? I was like, because it was never a
It
book.
wasn't a book.
It was,
Yeah. Yeah.
except for in Germany where they novelized Dooku, and no, and I
Interesting.
didn't. That was a shock for me,
Wow.
and I don't think they were
Okay.
supposed to. I don't think they were supposed to novelize it, but they did.
Is
The
that
next
still on
one
the
definitely
market?
wasn't novelized. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The next one was definitely a script. So
So like you said before, every day's Halloween for you, and Terror on Mustafar definitely kind of lives in that realm. Like I was definitely getting Tales from Vader's Castle vibes here. Do you kind of imagine this? Like I know those things are kind of non-canon, and I know that's probably not in your mind all the time when you're writing, but I know for the fans, it's always very important to like make connections and to do those types of things. How much does that kind of sit in your brain as you're writing this, like kind of a canonical story versus kind of what you've done before? Is it all kind of live in the same
oh
head
oh
universe
yeah,
for you?
yeah. So nothing in Terror contradicts anything you've seen in Tales from Vader's Castle. I mean, I have a very loose idea of what canon is and should be. And again, I think this is largely from being, the three things I loved when I was growing up were, James Bond, Doctor Who, and Star Wars. Now, one of those has a canon. The others, it's a bit like,
Right.
and especially Doctor Who, it's never had a canon. Me and George worked on a book when we had to do the um, the official history of the Dalek race as if it was a like historical record. It's really hard because they have three origin stories that are completely contradictory. And you can get away with it. You're time travel, timey-wimey. But yeah, that show never had, it never had a continuity. It never had a canon. It grows and it adapts in it. And I am also someone who loves expanded media of all kinds. And I love it when the expanded media doesn't quite link up to something. I mean, one of my favorite moments in all this kind of work, the kind of work I do, is nothing to, it's years before I was working on it, in Star Trek, when DC Comics used to do a Star Trek comic, they put one out after Star Trek 3, where the crew of the Enterprise get the Excelsior and Spock's fine, and there's a Klingon on the crew that's in Starfleet, and the Excelsior's got a cloaking device, and they go and have these wonderful adventures because they thought that's what would happen. And then they find out that the next film starts 2 days after the last film, and the crew of the Enterprise haven't got the Excelsior. They're still stuck on Vulcan. Spock's brain's mashed. There is definitely not a Klingon in Starfleet. So they had to jump through so many hoops to get them back off the Excelsior to give Spock and I love all that stuff. I mean, I also love the bit where things just get overwritten and then you just have to try and, it's one of the reasons I do this job, because I have that, I love that fan mentality of going, how does that work? How does this fit with that? And anyone who's has read any of my Star Wars stuff, my canon stuff, knows that I'm forever trying to sneak Legends stuff into it, or as
Yes.
I like to call it, the EU, because I still can't call it Legends. Because for me, that exists, that's out there.
Hmm.
It's not in a room over there. It's just like, yeah, in my head, all of those stories exist, even if they, in my head, you know. Leia and Han had the twins, and then they also had Ben, and it was just like, yeah, okay, cool. There's somehow I can make that work. And I love the knots you get tied into as fans trying to work all that stuff. And again, being a comic reader, you know, you only have to read DC and Marvel to see how
I was gonna say
continuities just
you're used to
change. And
it. Yeah.
read DC comics, and every few years there's going to be a new Batman,
Yeah.
but it's going to be the same Batman as before, and he's got all the experience, but he's never had those. And like, yeah, James Bond, the fact that we're supposed to believe that Daniel Craig is the same person as Roger Moore, but actually it's not anymore, because it's, yeah, I love it. I love that stuff. So, but I do, also I don't go in it willy nilly and try and break things, but so I will try and make it work. But it's like the Jackson stories. I try and make it work to every version of the Jackson timeline. So sometimes it's a bit difficult. I mean, we're going to see it I've got a Jackson story coming up, in a graphic novel later in the year. It's the one I was talking about, the project. We're working on the art at the minute. This is sort of the first time Jackson and Han meet in canon, but obviously we know that they met differently in the Marvel run, which is sort of different to the EU anyway, even though it's sort of the same. And so, yeah, so that there is a contradiction there, but at the same time, I've tried to put in little hints that, somewhere in the Force, those two experiences, meet up. And if they don't, they don't. It's fun.
I love thank you for saying that. I was thinking that the entire time you were answering that question is like Star Wars should be fun, right? I think all storytelling and like media, that's the point, and that it's entertainment for a reason. So I think sometimes people like make it too precious, or they kind of hyper focus on things that are too specific or too maybe limiting to their own enjoyment. So I love that you, as a creator in this space, as like a professional writer for Star Wars, like I love that you hold that imbalance so well, because I feel like you know what the responsibility is and what the people are expecting and what they want, but you kind of have this open hand philosophy, right? I love that.
Yeah, there's one of the script editors on Doctor Who, Robert Holmes, in the 70s, and he used to say, "Don't let continuity get in the way of a great story," and that explains so much about Doctor Who. And again, I also know what it's like to be the fan sitting there going, "But no, 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 that can't happen.
Yeah, yeah,
No, no,
yeah.
no, no, no. The Enterprise wouldn't have that there. Discovery, you know." But then I sort of catch myself and go, "Yeah, but what am I talking about? It's a spaceship that travels through space at warp speed, and you
Yeah.
know."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I always think back to, there was, again, sorry to keep mentioning Doctor Who on a Star Wars podcast, but there's a Christmas special of Doctor Who, which was the only time I ever watched Doctor Who with my mum, who has a complete, she doesn't like anything fantasy or science fiction. It's completely against everything she likes. But Christmas Day, we'd sit down and watch Doctor Who because it was on, and she didn't have a choice. And I remember there was this entire scene where there's been like robot Santa Claus firing missiles out of like tubas and trombones. You've had the TARDIS flying down the M4 motorway through Britain, and all this stuff going on. And then the Doctor jumps from the flying TARDIS to a taxi cab that's driving along the motorway, the highway. And that was the point she went, "Oh, as if." None of the rest, you know.
Yeah.
The flying police
This is
box,
so
yeah, that's fine.
unrealistic.
You
Yeah.
know, but the fact he could jump from one thing to another, and again, it's those moments when you go, "Oh yeah, no, it's silly, isn't it? It's silly."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's silliness we take seriously, and I think that's the point. You know, you have to take it seriously. I can't be flippant when I work on any of these things, whether it's Star Wars or, you know, Assassin's Creed or all these things, because people love this stuff, and you know, and I love this stuff, and I get it. I get when people get cross, because I get cross about things.
Hmm.
But then I think there is the moment you have to go, "Yeah, okay, but," you know,
Yeah. It's wizards in
and
space. We
it's,
like
yeah, you know, and wizards in space are really important, and
100%.
the emotions are important, and the
Yep.
stories are important, and people spend a lot of money on these things. You know, they invest a lot of time in these things. But at the same point, you know, personally for me, I have to remember to get a bit of perspective, because I can't take everything that seriously, because my head would explode.
Right. Yeah. Great philosophy for life, everyone. You heard it from Mr. Scott himself. Speaking of that, I'm going to go back a little bit to what you talked about when you were talking about your daughter and their, inroads to Star Wars. And I think this is a great segue, because I feel like having kids and having a different perspective on something that you love and viewing something through their eyes can kind of be a great reminder of those things. And I know there's a lot of Star Wars to come this year for fans. I know the Mandalorian and Grogu movie is coming out very soon, and that to me is like a that's going to be, I think that's my kid's inroad to Star Wars. Like, my daughter has never seen, this is going to be the first original Star Wars movie that we're all going to go see in the theater together. We saw Return of the Jedi, the 40th anniversary, together. She's seen Star Wars and been around it, but again, because of her age, she hasn't seen everything. And my son, there has been not been an original Star Wars movie in the theaters for like 7 years, so there's just been no opportunity for that. Obviously, there's been TV shows. So all that to say, it's so cool as a parent to see like what their on ramp to something that you love is. And so I think this is going to be it for them. We went to I don't know what, I want to hear what you did on May the 4th, if you did anything fun, but for May the 4th for us, are the cinemas here in the States did like a special 25-minute preview of The Mandalorian and Grogu. It was free, but it was kind of first come, first serve. So we got to see the first 25 minutes, and it got them so excited. And I was just like a proud father, like watching them be so excited to see Grogu and these characters that are, I think that's gonna be hooray. Like, Grogu and Mando are gonna be some kids out there's
Yeah,
inroads to Star
exactly.
Wars, and I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, our May the 4th was kidless, because they were off going off to do Star Wars things. So, you know, they don't need me to do that anymore. You know,
Right,
it
right.
was, you know, so I think Chloe had a marathon. I think she watched Empire, Return, Rogue One, and Solo. I think she
Amazing.
said she watched. Um, yeah, I mean, and Rebels was playing somewhere else in the house here, and then we had a family barbecue because everyone was off doing Star Warsy things. So it was, yeah, it was. So I mean, it's grown beyond the family unit now, you know, and it was
That's awesome.
completely. They discovered it themselves. I tried for years. They discovered it through Rebels, and then yeah, then The Force Awakens hit, and they were just the right age, you know, 8 and 10. Um, that was it. They were just the moment we came out of that movie. BB-8 for my youngest Chewie.
Hmm.
I mean, her room was a shrine for Chewie. Now it's all very Instagram ready and stuff. But let's say there's still there's still some Chewie action figures in there, and there's a Rey poster on the wall. But it's just all very nicely done now. Um, you know, yeah, it was there. You know, I just remember memories of driving and they're playing Rebels in the back, which is them this game they made up of if they saw a red car that was Imperial, and if they saw a yellow car that was the Rebellion, and so they would cheer or boo.
Nice.
um so many things like that. And you know, and again, you're right, 7 years, so 7 years ago they were much younger. You know, we went to see Rise of Skywalker. Connie, my youngest, is in full Wookiee onesie, you know. And whatever problems I had sometimes as a storyteller and a fan for things. So, you know, there were moments in Rise of Skywalker I loved. There were moments in Skywalker I didn't love, but I loved the experience of watching it. Not so much at the point when we thought Chewie had died, because I thought I was going to have to remove someone who was crying so much. You know, it was,
No.
thank God that he was only dead for a few minutes. Spoilers. But yeah, I mean, I will never forget the experience of watching that, because for them, it was like me going to see Return of the Jedi. They were so excited, and they will not have a bad word said against that movie. It's like me when friends say, well, the Ewoks are a bit crap, aren't they? You know, it's like, what are you saying?
How
And
dare you?
so,
Yeah.
and they know. I mean, I say my oldest is at drama school. She's doing film studies there. She knows about filmmaking. She knows about storytelling. She knows about some of the issues, some of the structure might have. Cannot say anything bad about that movie, because for her it's about sitting in that chair watching that film, the entire experience of it. Um that's that's important. And again, when I look back at watching Rise, I forget all the stuff around it. And I remember afterwards, back when I was on things like Twitter, I went on and said, you know, thank you. I had a great time with my family, and people piled on immediately. Oh, could you have a great time? Da, 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 da. I was like, did you not miss the second part of that sentence? With my
With
family,
my
you know, when we're sitting there
yes.
with popcorn, we're sitting there, as I said, with a Wookiee. You know,
Yes.
we've all got Star Wars t-shirts on with all those fans, and that experience, you know, driving to the cinema with John Williams music playing, you know, driving back with it still playing, all those things. That's the important bit. That's
Exactly.
the bit that now, when I watch Rise of Skywalker again, which I still do, there are moments then I think about it through that filter and through that lens. And so yeah, for me, that sequel era, whatever happens now, the sequel
Hmm.
era is really important to me, because that was the era my kids grew up in Star Wars, you know. And then that is, yes, that's completely become like, my eldest is Grogu mad. I've just spent a month and a half lino cutting her a
Yeah.
Grogu for a wall, and well, she's still, again, everything's Grogu, so she is beside herself about next week. And but again, it comes from Rebels. You know,
Hmm.
she met Ahsoka through Rebels. She had no idea what the Clone Wars was. She went back, and for her it was a really weird thing, because it was like, that was a weird Ahsoka in the Clone Wars. You know, she had to learn that was Ahsoka before Ahsoka. You know, so
Yeah.
because to her Ahsoka was the character she met in Rebels. But again, isn't that what it's all about? You know, for me, when I
Exactly.
started watching the Clone Wars, I was like, this isn't my Star Wars, you know, but it soon became my Star Wars. And we all
Yeah.
have those moments. Um,
Exactly.
and yeah, for her, it was like, she looked at the Clone Wars and went, that's not Rebels, you know, so, and now loves
Yeah.
the Clone Wars, because it all comes around, and we all, you know, we all get, this is what I always say to people online, if I'm not online so much these days, but if people are arguing about Star Wars, it's like, I can guarantee we have more in common than we argue about, you know,
Thousand
because
percent.
we all come back to three movies pretty much. You know, no matter where you are in Star Wars, everything comes back to that original trilogy. And you can be guaranteed that any Star Wars fan, if they're truly a Star Wars fan, will be able to agree on things like that. And so, and then all and all the noise around it is just noise, you know. And also, it's also opinion, and opinions are good. That's why we're fans, you know. And you can love one thing. There's parts of Star Wars I don't love. There's parts of Star Wars I absolutely adore, and that's
Hmm.
fine. That's just life. There's too
Exactly.
much Star Wars to like everything, basically.
It's so true. And I always say Star Wars is for everyone, but not every
Mm,
single piece of Star Wars is going to be everyone's
exactly.
favorite, you know? Yeah.
Exactly. It's yeah, it's but again, it always comes, and it usually comes down to family and friends. I mean, that's what it comes down to. You know,
100%.
it's
Yep.
usually a connection. It's you've either seen it with friends, you've seen it with family, you talk to your friends about it, you talk to your family, you know, and that's when it always comes back to.
100%. And yeah, even going back to like the High Republic, I mean, I feel like that was another just kind of marked moment for me in my love of Star Wars. And that's always going to be my friends that I made online and around. Like, those are now like my friends that I consider real friends, including people like you and the authors. And I feel like there was just a really special time where that was happening, and to me that's another just like core memory of Star Wars for me now. And
Yeah,
I even I
it's weird to me that it is a memory. It's still odd. But you're exactly, you know, you're exactly right. I mean, it got us through a really tough time.
Mhm,
Let's face it, you know, we launched that in pandemic, and um, so it got us through a really tough time. It gave us something to focus on. As writers, it gave us something to focus on. And it's weird now because I have sort of the wider thing of when I look at the High Republic now, obviously there are so many big memories of it. You know, there's the conventions, there's the panels, you know, there's the launches. But now actually I just think of like 10 or 11 people that I worked on it with, you know, and that's the important bit. And we still see each other and we all talk to each other and we still meet up virtually as far as we can because we're all on different countries now, and you know, and Claudia now lives in Europe, and you know, we've all moved around, and but then when we can, we see each other. As I mean, a few weeks ago, I was showing Charles and his wife around Bristol, you know, and we've got that connection which we're never going to lose, you know, and so you know, the other day. My phone beeps and it's Daniel, you know, it's all those kind of things. And now
mm,
that's what I look back with, you know,
right.
when I think of the High Republic now, everything we did was incredible, and it literally has changed all our lives. But for the best part has been that group of people who are working together and falling out over things, and you know, and working out how to solve problems, and dealing with this explosion of interest in this thing that we didn't think was going to be as big as it was or last as long as it did, and all those kind of things. Yeah, I think that's the bit I'll always look back on, you know, and I'm literally
Mhm,
looking over there and there's the picture of us all sitting in Skywalker Ranch. Um, yeah, that for me personally, obviously that's the thing, as well as I say, the wider thing of meeting people like you, going to those conventions, having people come up to you, you know, even today, we have meetings. So George and I have this sort of creative consultancy production company. We go into meetings with people at studios, and they go, "Oh God, we're High Republic fans." And so
ah, love it.
when you're not there to talk about Star Wars, it's crazy, you know. But you know, it happens all the time, and you realize how far that went. Because again, when you're in the middle of it, it feels really small. Even no matter how big it is, it feels really small. And so it's always a shock where people go up and go, you know, or people are still discovering it. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
most weeks go by, and someone says, "I'm just starting to read The Rising Storm," and I'm so sorry. You know, um, and I can say I'm so sorry if you hate it or love it. That's a good thing.
Right.
And you know, people are discovering these books, and I think I don't think I'd really got my head around that bit as well, that
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
starting the High Republic now, you
Yeah.
know, and just
And
again,
will
I suppose,
for
yeah,
will continue
yeah.
to.
Just like people are picking up you know, the EU stuff, you know, reading Zahn for the first time and that kind of
Mhm.
thing. It's like, again, that's what I love about this bonkers universe that we're so obsessed with in Star Wars, with so much history and all these books over, you know, so many stories, so many stories. There's always going to be someone finding them for the first time and going, and be able to go, oh, if you like that, you should go and read this, and if you like that, read that, because that's bonkers, that's weird,
Yeah.
and yeah, I love it. I love it. That's the thing that I always forget, that I'm now, the stories that I've written are part of that, because I still haven't quite worked that bit out, that they're all part of the big tapestry. So when people come up, I go, oh God, right, oh right, yeah. By the way, you should probably read that book as well now, and that one. I didn't
Yeah.
like that one, so read that one. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I designed, like, those character word shirts, and it has, like, all the 9 from the final book, so it's, like, Avar, Elzar, or sorry, Avar, yeah, so all of the
yeah,
characters from the final
yeah,
book, and I was wearing it on Casual Friday at my office, and, this person in the break room was like, "So what is that? Is that, like" I was like, "Oh, that's from" there's actually a whole timeline of Star Wars that was, like, fully in publishing, so these are some of the main big characters. She was like, "Oh my gosh, that is so cool. I didn't even know that that existed. That's amazing." And I was like, "I'm gonna keep educating everyone person by
yeah,
person
yeah.
that this
And
exists." Yeah.
God bless you for that. But what a world they've got. And again, they've got so many different routes they can take. If they try the High Republic and they don't like it, well, there's so many other things they can try, And if they
100%.
try that and they don't like it, well, perhaps they can come back to what
Yeah.
that's what I love about it now. That it's
Yeah.
just, there are so many routes through this. I mean, hyperpaths, it's like,
Yeah.
it's really exciting that, and the majority, if you think, it's really unusual for a franchise, the majority of what's published is available, and because
Yeah.
there are so many franchises where you can't get old stuff,
That's true. Yeah.
you can't get,
Yeah.
but the fact that most Star Wars books stay in, in
In
some
print.
form or another, stay
Yeah.
in publication.
Yeah.
Um, and that's incredible. It's amazing, because, and it's obviously, it's the genius of George Lucas and genius of Star Wars that is the basis of all of that. But we're really lucky as a fandom that exists, and that
100%.
you can access all of these things really easily. Nothing really goes away, to misquote Luke, because you can always usually find it. Yeah, a few rare things that, here and there. But for someone coming into this, the fact they've got so much choice, and they can just go down one route, or they can do it all, um, depending on how much time they have in their lives.
Exactly. Sometimes I'm jealous of them. I'm like, "Man, I
Mm,
wish I could go back." I mean, I guess,
yeah,
like, you can at any time, but you can't unremember all the things you already know. But
no, of
I just
course
sometimes I'm
not.
jealous of people. I'm like, "Oh, you're ready for such a journey. You're gonna go on a journey." And that's what I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
was so special too about the High Republic. And it just was this, like, confluence of IP that people loved, but also, like, I feel like book people and readers really felt like they were being seen and, like, nurtured. And I feel like that's kind of a corner of the internet, of the world. It's definitely grown and it's different now, like books, and I feel like I love that it's so popular. But in this specific fandom, it felt like readers were, like, being cared for. And I feel like I echo what you said about continuing to be close with your friends on the, authorship side, because I have the same thing with my friends that we made discovering and reading and talking about the series are the people who are constantly in my life. I text message them, I've visited them. They're all around the world too. And so I think it was such just like a special time of bringing people together.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think as a fandom, we are so fortunate as readers, because I don't think there are many other franchises that cater to readers as well as Star Wars does. I mean, there are obviously lots of beloved universes that have lots of fiction and have had for years, and but again, when you look at the sheer amount, I mean, I think it is for me the big three of Star Wars, Star Trek, and Doctor Who. Nothing other than those three. Everything that there are obviously other fandoms that have a lot of things, but if you're in one of those three fandoms, you are so blessed,
Yeah.
because you have 60, 50, 60 years worth of material, across all three, that you can just dive into, and as I say, go down as many rabbit holes, green rabbit holes, that you want. It's incredible when you think about it, that when you come back. It's hard when you're trying to write it, because you go, oh my God, there's 60, 70 years of content here.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
it's, how do you write a story that no one's told before? Well, it's really difficult, because there have been so many stories told. Um, but again, what you've got to do at that point is go, well, how did those stories make me feel? And then,
Mm.
so you spend more time worrying about how it makes you feel than it does about, oh, am I going to be able to tell an original story? Because largely, you're probably not going to be able to tell a completely 100% original story because there's been so many. But what you've got to do is try and, what did I feel like when I first read Splinter from the Mind's Eye and that kind of thing? When I first walked in and saw Dark Empire in the comic store, when I first read, Heir to the Empire, that's what I want to hopefully bring out in people, because that for me is the most important thing. What does it feel like when you're picking up and you're reading that book or that comic or listening to that thing or watching that TV program or watching that film? Does it, the work I've done, would it make me feel the same way as I did when I was 7, 15, 21? Because we all change and we all grow in our tastes and what we like. But again, you can always remember those moments, across anything you're enthusiastic about.
Well, speaking of other things that you are enthusiastic about, let's talk about some non-Star Wars things that you are working on, that have released recently, or you have coming up that you can talk about. What other projects are kind of on your plate right now?
What can I talk about? So, this is always the question, Jason. So I suppose the biggest thing outside of Star Wars that I can talk about, I have a Masters of the Universe mini series coming out from Dark Horse, which again, one of those things. I always joke that my to-do list is the same now as when I was 10. And for me, He-Man was, he was up there always, and it's never really gone away. And I can't believe I'm one of those guys going, there's a movie this year. They're doing a movie of He-Man. George and I, as I say, work on a lot of tabletop gaming products and things like that. And universes, there's a new game over here called Conflict 47, which is a weird World War II series of games, tabletop gaming, war gaming. We're working on that quite a lot with them about expanding that into a wider universe. And then the other thing I can talk about is my graphic novel, Godfather of Hell, which comes out from Vault in August. Now, this was something that was coming out a couple of years ago as a normal monthly comic, but then Diamond went bankrupt, the people who distribute comics, and it all went a bit crazy. And so we pulled it from the shelves and we're putting it out as a graphic novel in August this year, which is very different to the kind of stuff if you read Terror of Mustafa and you're that age, you probably shouldn't read Godfather of Hell. It's a neo-noir
From the title
thing
alone, probably.
Yeah, exactly. It's about someone who's a enforcer for the mob, who ends up on the wrong side of a bullet, gets sent to hell because he's done some very bad things. Meets the devils down there, and realizes, oh my goodness, hell's just a racket, and I can do well here. And they go, oh, we need someone who can go and enforce debts. You're the man for the job. So that's been a lot of fun. We're working on that. We're closing that out at the minute. That comes out in August. And other than that, I can't say. There is some other stuff going on, but as always with these things, yeah, there's so many plates spinning, so many things in the air. But yeah, those are the sort of three things. So there's the Jackson
Awesome.
graphic novel I talked about from Mad Cave, Scoundrels and Smugglers. There's Godfather of Hell for a slightly older reader. There's He-Man for a slightly younger reader. And there's the gaming stuff under
Something for
Board
everyone.
Games.
That Mad
Yes,
Cave one is this summer, right? I think.
Yes, I think September. So
okay, September. Okay.
yeah, I think it's September. We're Christian, who's doing the art, is incredible. It's got this real sort of crazy animated style to it.
Yes,
it comes out.
I love that.
It's a graphic novel, so it's about 180 pages, I think. He's finishing up the art at the minute. And it's great. It's a load of fun. It's the first meeting. You see the first meeting of Han and Jackson. It has just about every bounty hunter you can think of in there. Jabba has a problem. He gets in a load of smugglers and bounty hunters, and somehow Han and Chewie and Jackson get pulled into that into a bounty hunter race. When I was asked to do it by Mike, he wanted something with sort of wacky races in Star Wars, and I think it's certainly got that kind of element to it. And but at the center of it all, you've got the fact that you've got Jackson and Han, and from the moment they meet, they rub each other up the wrong way.
Uh,
But from the
yeah.
moment they meet, Chewie can realize that there's something there. And Chewie can see that there's a friendship that if only it could come out. Because Chewie's wise and Chewie knows everything. So yeah, that's it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. And the Luke graphic novel that comes around the same time that Greg Pak's written, that's superb as well. So yeah, Matt Cave are going to be doing some really cool things with Star
That's
Wars.
awesome.
Slightly younger maybe than what we saw with Dark Horse and IDW, but not that much. And again, all age. So it's very much written in the fact that if you want a fun Star Wars romp, those are going to be the graphic novels.
Nice. I was really excited when they announced that Mad Cave kind of is entering with those types of titles because I miss those. I love the animated style anything. That's always super close to my heart. Like anything animated, like I'm looking at my Batman animated series collection of toys. Like anything
Yeah, yeah,
stylized like that, Disney Infinity. I really loved the figures. They just remind me of that. That like harkens back to my like animation love from my childhood. So I'm
yeah.
so
No,
excited for
it's
those.
and also again, the fandom needs young readers. The
Yeah.
fandoms always need new, and that's when going back to when IDW launched Star Wars Adventures, which sort of like went into Dark Horses, and now is going into Mad Cave.
Yes.
Um, the best moments were doing sign-ins and having parents bringing up their kids, to
Yeah.
sign these comics. The
Yeah.
reason I'm still writing Jackson's, I've been writing him to what, 2018? Is that when we brought him back? The reason people say to me, "Oh God, you're doing Jackson again," it's like because kids love him, as I knew they would, and kids read those books, and we need kids to read those books. We need them to be able to, because they can't always pick up the Marvel Star Wars books, nor should they, again, and we need books like the Marvel books for a different kind of reader, but we definitely need, and the comic industry in general needs early reader comics,
Mm. Hmm.
because we need to teach kids how to read comics because it is a certain, there are so many people come to me from the High Republic and said, "Oh, the High Republic was my first step into comics," which I love, but then they say, "I had no idea how to read them," because they never really read them. And if you've grown up with comics, you go, "What?" But actually, when you think about it, they've got their own flow, their own pace, way of working, obviously the art and the words together. And so we need kids to read them from it because you haven't got that thing anymore of kids going into the drugstore and going, "I'm going to pick up a copy of Superman or whatever," because that doesn't exist anymore in the same way. People aren't reading Garfield and things in the papers like they used to on on
Hmm.
Sundays because that doesn't exist anymore. So we need we need kids comics to really help people because otherwise there won't be a comic industry in 10 years, 20 years time because
Yeah.
we need them reading them now.
So that's what I love about Free Comic Book Day. It gets families and people in comic shops, and I love that there's titles that there was a Garfield one this year. My daughter picked it up and loved it. So I was like, I need to go buy. I used to own those Garfield.
Yes.
They would put them together. They were like they would put the strips together.
Yeah, yeah.
I had so many of those when I was growing up. So I want to actually go find some from like the 90s. I don't think they print them anymore, but my kids would love them. They love reading that stuff. So anyway,
Yeah,
I agree.
it's when you talk to kids and they go, "Oh, what? Hang on, Snoopy was a cartoon.
Comic?
It was a
Yeah.
comic." Like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
no, very much so. Yeah, and yeah, I think we've lost a lot in the because comics have become something you go to a specialized shop to find. I mean, when I grew up in the 70s and 80s over here in the UK, our newsstand we had like hundreds of comics every week, and now it's barely any.
Yeah.
In newsagents, in supermarkets, in everywhere. It would be all these humor comics and things like 2000 AD and things like that. Um, I really mourn those days have gone because, I don't know how kids are finding comics. But I do know actually they're finding them through librarians and schools now because schools and librarians have realized what's been lost and that they're trying it. And there are people like 10 Speed Press and a lot of the mainstream publishers are now putting out, brilliant comics. Things like Heartstopper, which has been a sensation over here. That's originally a graphic novel. So
Yep.
kids are finding stuff. It's just
Yeah.
harder these days.
And there's a new generation, I feel, of my son loves Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Captain Underpants. So graphic novels are definitely a thing, but like those comic books and comic strips, yeah, that it's a little bit different. But anyway, they love it because it's something else that draws their attention and draws their eye. I just got to get like educators to understand that it counts as reading. Like, don't don't harp on
Yeah,
graphic novels, please.
and I think it's changed. I think it's changed a lot. And I think because we've, like all things, it's like the people who loved the prequels, you know, when their kids are now making stuff. So we all love the prequels now. You know, I think what's happening, we've got teachers and librarians who grew up reading this stuff and
Yeah,
now look around and go, where is it? So
yeah,
you've
yeah,
got that generation of people who are now coming and going, oh no, we need this.
yeah.
And
Right.
especially, I've done a lot of work with boys in schools who aren't great readers, don't think reading's for them. They think it's a very female hobby. You know, they don't think books exist for them. Um, and sometimes comics are the best way of getting them into it because, you know, they don't, they somehow, and I'm not saying that comics are just for boys in any way, because I don't believe that, but there's something about comics that boys you know, catch onto, you know, hook onto. And for reluctant readers, comics are really good for young boys.
Thousand percent.
So it is good to see schools and librarians. I mean, librarians, as we all know, are God's gift to the world, but they, you know, it's good to see them really starting to push comics through. And again, one of the reasons these books that we're doing from Madcade are graphic novels is because that's how kids are reading. They don't read floppies anymore. They don't read 20 page, you know, monthly comics. They read graphic
Yeah,
novels. So
yeah,
that's why we've sort of moved from the kind of thing that IDW and Dark Horse have been doing to, you know, big chunky books.
yeah.
Yeah, and with complete stories.
That's so fun. Side personal note, my son is finishing up primary school here. He's in 6th grade, so he's gonna go into junior high school here. And it's so cute because he is a huge reader. They have this point system where part of his grade, you have to get a certain amount of points after you read a book. You take a quiz and you get points, which to me it's a can be problematic because it could encourage kids to read just for points. But he loves to read, but he also is competitive, so he wants to get as many points as possible. So but the librarian at his school, we're mourning because I'm like, she has got to know him so well and she's recommending him books because she knows how like voracious of a reader he is. And it is like the sweetest thing. And we're like, oh no, you're gonna have to get to learn a whole new librarian when you go off to junior high school. So shout out to librarians, even school
They're
librarians.
amazing.
Like she's doing an amazing job there. And I just anyway, that's like a short personal family note that we were
No,
literally just
and
talking about.
I think you're right about the entire. Sometimes with kids and our school system, we make it a chore. My youngest is now a voracious reader. She goes through so many years. She's discovered romancy. She's discovered crime novels. You know, she reads all the time now. When she was at school, we could not get her to pick up a book because
Mm,
it was a trudge. It was a chore. It was homework. And now it's pleasure. You know, now she gets it. Now the first place we look at when we to visit a new town is the bookshop. You know, it. This is the girl I wouldn't read a book, you know, and now she's come in and she's saying, she's read one book and she's got the series in her bag, you know. So it does happen as well that, you know, we spend so much time telling kids, you must read these things, and you must only read this, you mustn't read that. And you've got to do it for grades and all that kind of thing. And it's brilliant that your kid's a reader. I'm not surprised at this, knowing you. But, you know, it can work against, for some kids, you know, they can bounce straight off of it. And yeah, for me now, seeing Con having this love, you know, this love for reading and, you know, the kind of girl now who has book journals and all those kind of things. Yeah, 5 years ago, that wasn't a thing. You know, it was, you know, Mike Siglane used to send her books galore to try and help me to get her to read, like Disney books used to arrive. No, she's read them now. She's gone back and read
yeah,
them, you know,
yeah.
all the sort of twisted Disney stories and all those
Oh,
kind of
yes.
things.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and it's and again, actually, this is the importance of what we love with tie-in fiction. The thing that got her into it was there was I can't think of the name. There was a Tinkerbell fantasy novel that came out a few years back, slightly older than, you know, again, when I was a kid, if we weren't watching Star Wars, we were watching those Tinkerbell movies, you know, the Flower Fairy
Okay.
ones, and it'd been over and over and over again. And I know those films as much as I know anything, I think. And so that was the, she saw that and then went, oh, it's Tink. And so she picked that up and read it, which then led her into the romantasy section, which then led her into the fantasy section, which then led her into the horror section. And so, yeah, the importance of what we do as tie-in writers and licensed writers, I think it's why I read, because I read Doctor Who novelizations when I was a kid, and that the Doctor dressed up as Sherlock Holmes, so I went and read a Sherlock Holmes thing. The Doctor goes up against vampires, so I read a vampire thing. I go and find Star Wars novels or Star Trek novels, and they'll be next to the science fiction, and they'll be, oh, I like the Falcon, I like the Enterprise. Well, there's a cool spaceship. I don't know what that is. I'll read that book. And I think, again, you need as many entry points in all of these things. And so that's why, again, Star Wars books, Doctor Who books, Star Trek books, licensed novels, for anything from Minecraft up, and beyond that. They're so important because they could be the thing that tips someone over into be a reader.
Well, I feel like we just preached a whole lecture.
I know. I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
No, I love it. We were doing it together. I was with you. Cav, what I want to talk about kind of the rest of the year appearances, or maybe just even in the next 12 months. Like, where can people connect with you? Are you going to be at any conventions? Are you going to see you at Star Wars Celebration 2027? Can you say?
I'm having a sort of year off from things.
Okay. Okay.
Just because the last few years were so crazy. And so High Republic, when did High Republic finish? That last year, wasn't it? Obviously we really pushed that promotional period and we were at everything. And obviously I live in the UK. It's getting to America is a experience these days. And so I've decided to have a year when I can just sort of like take the foot off the gas a bit. So I'm not going to be at so many conventions this year. I'm not coming to a US one. And I'm sure I will be again one day. But yeah, I thought 2026, again, knowing it was going to be the year that Con would be going to university. George was moving down to live near where I live now. We've got a business together. We've got hobbies that we do together. Yeah, we both decided actually that we were going to take a sort of step back. So there's going to be some, if you're in the UK and you're at the Games Expo in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to be there. But
Nice.
yeah, I'm also taking a bit of a year to go to things, the conventions that I can just go to as a punter. So with Games Expo, I'm going there because I'm doing some things with Conflict 47 and all those kind of things. But I'm also going so I can buy lots of, minis to paint and stuff.
Miniatures.
So,
Yeah. Love it.
so yeah, it was a little bit of a refresh and and regenerate, and I've got we've got lots of work on, so lots of things happening, but yeah,
Good. Okay.
I have decided to take a pause, and I think it's going to be good for me in the long run. And then when I come back to conventions, it's going to be exciting, and I'll be enthusiastic and ready to bound into the halls.
We support that. We support a decision always. So we'll do what you have to do. I just want to let people know, if you are going to be out and about, where can they find you? But maybe it's more to come, folks. More to come.
There's definitely more to come. And again, I've taken a little bit of step back from socials. You can still get me in my newsletter, which is cavletter.com. You can find me usually on Instagram. That's the one I go to more often than not, but I'm not on there as much. Again, same thing. We spend a lot of time on social media the last few years with iRepublic. I have the chance to sort of just breathe for a bit. So I think you're right. I mean, it is important. And when you're a writer and a creator, we spend so much time wanting our creators to be online and available all the time. And the one thing that doesn't help is being creative, because you're tired, and it's hard to be creative when you're tired. And again, I've taken a year to say, I'm going to learn some new craft. I'm going to learn, some new things as well. So it's like, because again, you don't want to keep doing the same stuff all over again. I'm looking at some different things I can write. I'm looking at different types of writing I can do. And hopefully people who know me for my Star Wars stuff, and my Star Wars stuff isn't going anywhere. It's still there. But again, it's that I don't want to be on the treadmill, just churning out more and more and more. And then it's not so exciting for me or anyone else. So 2026 has always been a moment for me to step back and breathe and get back out there when it's done.
Well, having said that, I appreciate you carving out the time to come and chat with
Always,
me to
always.
talk about books and family life and preach about education and literacy. Cavan, thank you so much for joining me, and I'm sure that this will not be the last time. And wish you all
Sure.
the best. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Jason.